In this episode of Detroit Performs, an editorial cartoonist, a festival of the presses, and a comic strip artist. It's all ahead on this edition of Detroit Performs.
Funding for Detroit Performs is provided by Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929. Funding is also provided by the Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs and the National Endowment for the Arts, and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to Detroit Performs. I'm your host, DJ Oliver, and today we're exploring art that is hot off the presses. So of course, I'm at Signal Return, a letterpress print shop in Detroit's Eastern Market. We'll learn more about Signal Return and the power of the Press Fest later in this episode. But our first artist is Detroit Free Press editorial cartoonist Mike Thompson, who engages his audience with satirical takes on events happening in today's world.
Satire can make the unpalatable palatable. It's a great way of communicating with people and for communicating ideas. An editorial cartoon is such an approachable medium. People can relate to it. And the beauty of it is that you can say things in a single image and a few words that it might take a columnist paragraphs to say. There's a very, very long history of political cartooning in America. In fact, Benjamin Franklin published the first political cartoon in America, the famous Join or Die, Divided Snake. And I think you can approach issues and offer solutions in ways that you can't with the written word. We're a visually oriented society, and I think people are naturally drawn to political cartoons, especially in the current political environment where social satire is so hot. Being a political cartoonist requires a sort of a unique skill set. I mean, you have to understand the news. You have to be able to write and write concisely. You have to be able to draw and have a sense of humor. And caricature is an important part of that. But caricature is just something you teach yourself over years. And it's the process of creating an image that resembles the person but doesn't exactly look like the person. So for example, with Trump, I'm taking his most prominent features, and the trick is to blow them out as much as you possibly can, but still remain true to the general image of Trump. And that can be a challenge sometimes. My sensors are on all the time. I'm constantly thinking, I'm constantly trying to come up with an analogy. People ask where I get my ideas, and there's no set way of coming up with an idea. You don't sit down and say, I'm going to come up with an idea. It doesn't work that way. It sort of comes to you. After I've come up with an idea, then it's a lot of staring at a computer screen, because the drawing itself can take anywhere from 5 hours up. I've spent up to 12 hours on a drawing. The actual caricatures of the people, I draw the old-fashioned way, pen and ink, and then I scan them in. But after that, it's all on the computer. I scan the images in, color them in Photoshop, and then I'm doing the background or other objects. You can do things that were unimaginable when I first started out in this career. The lighting, the color, the texture, it's really an amazing time to be doing this job. Having a point of view that drives your opinion and drives your work is critical. My job is not just to create jokes about the news. My job is to comment on the news in a hopefully funny, pithy, or ironic fashion. And that's going to be driven by my ideology. There's a real appetite out there in America for the type of work that I do. And then you throw into that mix the fact that Donald Trump is in the White House. It's a really exciting time to be doing this job. My job is to get people thinking and get people talking and to advocate for issues and people who have been getting churned up in this current political system of ours. Really, my audience, I hope, would be anyone who is interested in news and interested in the world around them. One of the really nice things about a political cartoon is that you can advocate for issues that might not be getting as much attention. With Trump becoming president, the challenge is to talk about important issues that don't intersect with him. Well, he's president of the United States, so it's sort of hard to come up with ideas that don't intersect with the president of the United States. I mean, even things like the Flint water crisis. Well, today I'm working on some line art for an animation I'm going to be doing on Education Secretary Betsy DeVos. It's an animation about the amount of money that's being spent for her private security. And I'm suggesting that they should instead just give her a voucher and let her hire mall cops. It's empowering, but there's also a huge responsibility that goes along with the job. I'm exaggerating, oftentimes, events. I'm exaggerating what people say. There also has to be a kernel of truth underlying everything that I do. You know, I can't deliberately misrepresent someone's policy position. So, you know, I'm giving them a lot of license, but there is a responsibility, not only in terms of how I approach my job, but in making sure that I stay within the boundaries of common sense and good taste. I get an enormous amount of response to my work, and the response runs the gamut. But even the negative response, I don't mind. If I'm going to put out an opinion in a public forum, then I better be able to take it when people want to tell me what they think of my work. My goal is to start a conversation and to get people thinking, and if they're going to think and take 5 minutes to sit down and write me an email, even if it's negative, they have sat down and thought about it, and that's positive. With everything that's going on in America, you need a laugh, or you need someone who's there who you think gets it and is saying it in public and is saying it in a way that is biting or sarcastic. People are so confused and so upset that when they see someone who can encapsulate what they've been thinking in an image and a few words, it's very powerful. The other part of the job is to stand up for people and issues and causes that don't really get a lot of coverage. Social justice issues, for example. I mean, you look at what's happening in the country with anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, racism. Those problems existed before Trump, but they've been amplified. And there needs to be people in public positions, in a public forum, pushing back against that. And if you can do it in a biting and sarcastic fashion, all the better.
You can learn more about Mike Thompson as well as all the artists we feature on DetroitPerforms.org. Signal Return had a light bulb of an idea to celebrate the printing press. After lots of planning and partnerships came a 5-day Power of the Press Fest in Eastern Market. Here's a look into the excitement of the event.
Power of the Press Fest is radical.
Magic. Sparkly.
Fun.
The Power of the Press Fest is a gathering of like-minded people.
Amazing.
Signal Return is a community letterpress print shop located in Detroit's Eastern Market. There are a number of print collectives in the city of Detroit, so we hatched this idea of bringing everybody together and celebrating printmaking.
I think people are very intrigued by printing. These techniques that are almost magical in a way, where you have this blank piece of paper or fabric and then you print on it and then you have something there that you made.
Power of the Press, it's taking place in multiple locations across the city.
I start off with peace because I come in peace, and I hope that you do the same.
It's our kickoff event with Motor Signal, which is a poetry reading.
I get to be a part of the kickoff event. Like, this is exciting, particularly because the theme is around water. And so I consider myself a water warrior and a water advocate. My city's dying of thirst, but sit on 20%. They stealing water from us, but we purchasing it. This is the story of the water wars. It ain't your fault, but the battle is yours. I think the narrative is important, the community stories, and a lot of times those don't get told. And this is an opportunity to expand our imagination.
A lump in my throat, glum outrage. How can loveliness like this now make us afraid? Contamination of blessings, and who's to blame? This is a celebration of the dignity of language, the integrity of language, the possibility of language.
That after the poets do a fairly conventional reading of their work, they engage the audience. The audience actually helps write or perform a poem. We have partnered with a New York-based artist named Leslie Dill. She's speaking informally here at Signal Return on Friday.
I walked into their printmaking department and there was a poster that said, "We hate Helvetica." I said, "Ah, my people." And so it's like something, yes.
Friday night there are exhibitions that are opening across the city in different venues.
The focus of the Detroit Sequential exhibition is on the idea of the newspaper, and it involves artists around Detroit that are making comic strips for the first time.
Dreamland is a portfolio exchange on the theme of dreamscapes and dream imagery, the work of lots of artists who live all over the U.S.
There are workshops all over the city.
Doing the risograph workshop here with Ryan Malloy.
Currently we're working on chromatic typography using the risograph, which is really exciting because it's using an old kind of style of typography but using newer technologies.
We're going to do a little print exchange here after that, so run these individual pieces through here and see what we can make.
We are having a workshop that is about collaborative printmaking, and so each of our participants are making artwork to burn into a screen, and all of the artwork is made by hand with no digital methods involved. The power of the press is really allowing people to give voice to their thoughts and to get their message out.
Amos Kennedy is teaching a letterpress class here called Poster Power.
So they all are making a poster of their individual text. Hopefully this is an introduction. It will spark the curiosity and then I'll come back and do more.
This is messy, but that's part of the process.
I've known this was coming. I walked through the door, did not expect to see how great this is.
There are 50 artists. They each have a table and a display area for their work. So a wide variety of related print techniques will be demonstrated by artists, some from Detroit and some from out of town. And we'll have the typewriters available for kids and adults.
I typed my name and more words.
This is absolutely great. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm about 12 right now.
They're doing sandpaper prints. They're one-off mono prints.
But people are not just here for a good time because it's something to go to for free. They're buying and they're engaged, so I think that's great.
I got to screen print this card on paper myself. So it's a pretty innovative, pretty great thing for the attendees to come and be a part of. I'm looking forward to seeing the steamroller printing method.
For kids, it's very accessible and it's very hands-on and fun, a little bit messy.
They're making bargaining. purple, a blue, a green.
This is what we came up with.
This is a huge success. There's so much dialogue, exchange, and right now we need more of this, definitely.
No matter how much they lower the bar in poetry, I always manage to slip in under it.
It is an ideal situation for the public to get out and see how printing functions.
It's really cool to see all of the print shops sort of getting together and working together and putting this huge thing on.
I'm hoping it's the first of many. It's really nice that it brings a lot of printers together.
It's more than just like your own thing, and it's everybody all together, and we're all doing this, and it's all represented here at Signal Return.
Whoa! All right, so let me get my type and I'll be right back. But for now, let's check out some upcoming events happening in and around the D. Ooh, I like this one the best. Has a little advertising cut to it. Mike Peters' work is seen daily in over 800 newspapers worldwide. A lifetime of real-world experiences takes shape each day in the canine antics of Mother Goose and Grimm. Take a look.
I still work for the Dayton Daily News in Dayton, Ohio, but it's like I live there because I have my computer. I get on their thing and I hear the newscast, what they think are the top stories, and I go, okay, I can do a cartoon about that, you know. And my editors, they're always amazed that I am so attuned to what's going on in Dayton, Ohio.
He worked for the Chicago Daily News and then the Dayton Daily News as an editorial cartoonist. And after he won the Pulitzer in 1981, he was being courted by bigger papers.
The syndicates had been asking me to do a comic strip, which is very rare. I mean, you know, usually you have to go and beg to do a comic strip to the syndicates. But I had been syndicated with my political cartoons.
He really we liked living Dayton, and we liked our kids growing up in Dayton, and he said he'd always wanted to do a comic strip and maybe that would be a good outlet.
But it never dawned on me that I was going to be doing it every day of my life for the next 30 years. I had no idea. So I'm going to art school, but in the meantime, I meet this girl, fabulous girl. You know? Well, it turns out her father was the dean of students at Washington University.
And in art school, he did what he did best, which was draw cartoons for, you know, the newspaper and the yearbook and stuff, instead of going to class, because nobody ever told him going to class is a good idea, until he met this one professor who said, "You're a great cartoonist, do cartoons."
He said, when you go to figure drawing class, don't draw a figure, exaggerate it, exaggerate the figure, make it into a cartoon. When you go to painting class, paint a cartoon. When you go to design class, design a cartoon. I said, Mr. Burnell, won't they get mad? He said, Mike, you're already flunking, it's okay.
And then, much to my father's dismay, he started getting A's and B's and actually graduated.
It changed my life. I knew then that cartoons was my destiny, was my goal, was my bliss. I love to do them, and obviously the world is telling me, you got to do this. If you try to make up something, it's not as real as if you just do it right out of your life. And a lot of my stuff is right out of my life.
The comic strip came about pretty much out of his head, characters that he'd always played around with. And then the dog is him, he's the dog. And one time I proved it because the dog drinks out of toilets. Well, he doesn't do that, but he does eat out of trash cans. And I caught him. He was trying to wean himself off of Fritos.
So Marion came in one day to my office and she said, "What are you doing?" And I came up and I'm licking my finger and getting the crumbs of the Fritos down at the bottom. And she says, "Oh my God, you're the dog." I never realized I was a dog. I always thought the dog was just this entity that I was trying to do funny cartoons, but I was the dog. And once I learned that, the strip all came together. And I've been having a great time ever since. I'm in about 700 papers around the country, around the world. So it's great.
He is a very prolific creator. He comes up with thousands. I mean, all these pages here are filled with 50 or 100 ideas, which he won't use.
When I start a cartoon, I'm just writing ideas down, and then anything that hits my mind, I start developing it.
Any other cartoons would just use the very first one and be done for the day. Whoa!
I still don't know if I'm going to do it, you know, and so it's over there.
Sometimes the standards are a little too high, and there's a deadline, and then there's standards. And I say, okay, go with the best of all these horrible ideas you came up with, any one of which most cartoonists would kill for, you know.
And this was, my daughters are always saying to me, "Dad, you got a bat in the cave." And I was thinking, who could say that? So I have Lincoln saying to Roosevelt, "Teddy, you got a bat in your cave," which I thought was a funny idea because he probably does have a bat in his cave. But that's how I come up with ideas. I think of things, I write things down that my kids say or that people say on the news or that I see at a grocery store, and then I try to make it into something that's funny that people will hopefully laugh at. I know when I'm hitting my truth, it'll hit the truth of 1,000 other people out there. And then I always get good reaction from people because they say, "Oh my God, it's exactly true for me."
All right, thank you very much. I think I may have found a new craft. That wraps it up for this edition of Detroit Performs. As always, for more arts and culture, head to DetroitPerforms.org, where you'll find featured videos, blogs, and information on coming arts events. Also, check us out on Facebook and Twitter. I'd like to thank Signal Return for letting me roam around here today and teaching me a new craft. Until next Tuesday, get out there and show the world how Detroit performs, y'all. I'm DJ Oliver. Thanks for watching, guys.
Funding for Detroit Performs is provided by Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929. Funding is also provided by the Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs and the National Endowment for the Arts, and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.